So, how does one go about defining these or designing these cultures in their respective teams at a team level? And what impact does that have on the higher or not higher, but on, let's say, for example, you define this culture in your team. What impact does the organizational culture have on this culture as well? So, first, how do you design this? And second, how does this interact with the overall culture that this subculture is a part of?
To be very frank, at a base, we cannot design a culture. Because of how dynamic and fluid it is, by definition, culture cannot be designed. What you can do is create environments and situations where you can encourage a certain culture to develop. You cannot, by design, say like, okay, we're going to do these four things at a team level, and that will create this culture. Because each team is going to be different, each individual on each team is going to be different, and they're going to perceive and understand that environment differently. So we can just make a environment conducive to a certain culture, and then basically have to filter out, who amongst your team is conducive to that environment and that culture, and who is not. And for who are not, you have to then, rework some of your environment. That could be through language, that can be through structure. How do you organize your meetings? How do you organize their deadlines? How do you organize their tasks, right? So there cannot, at its core, while you can have an organizational structure, culture at a large level, it is not, what's the word, uh, duplicatable. You cannot duplicate it at a team level, at a managerial level, at a leadership level, multiple times. An organizational culture is something that's built by the amalgamation of multiple cultures in multiple teams. For example, the culture you want to develop at a developer side is going to be vastly different than a culture that would work at a sales side or a marketing side or a leadership side, right? So instead of focusing on what kind of culture can we create organizationally, it's better to sort of fragment culture in an organization into different sections. For example, you can have your R&D culture, you can have your sales culture, you can have your design culture, you can have your marketing culture, you can have your leadership culture as separate entities. And that becomes easier to shape. You still can design it, but you can sort of, lead it along a certain part to a certain extent. Of course, you can take the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But there are certain things in the environment that you can change. For example, how you set up deadlines, how you set up meetings. For example, in my experience working with more creative people in marketing and design, they tend to do much better with open briefs when it comes to their tasks. They want to express their creativity, and they sort of don't like supervision as much. Whereas in more engineering and more technical fields, they want more details in terms of what is expected of them and what is expected of their tasks and the features that they're developing. So you have to really tailor your work environment for each culture to be able to sort of generate maximum efficiency from each of these departments. So I believe the thinking that you can have an organizational structure, which is a certain way, I think that's flawed in of itself.